You've all positively influenced Lizzie to be our spokeswoman then. Okay, Lizzie, so share your thoughts.
So getting stuck in,
Yeah.
being able to accept criticism, but also give it.
What kind of support for emotional intelligence, you have to be able to support people, so you don't necessarily want to micromanage, but also understand where people need that. Being open and honest about what happens, being willing to make mistakes, leading by example, respect, empowering people, taking a lot of responsibility, adapting, kind of similar really.
So yeah, fabulous. And you know, I'm sort of guessing and hearing your conversation, some of that has been learned the hard way. I know you know, 1 year into managing a team, I had a team of 3 initially, and I lost 2 of the team, and I was thinking, is it me? It was really tough suddenly to think, I'm losing all this skills and expertise, and I've got to recruit, I've got to think about what I need, I've got to manage a whole new set of people, and it was quite tough. It was certainly some learning points I went through from there. Yeah, but the whole thing about, you know, positive mental attitude, role modelling, getting to know your team, but you can't be their best friend, can you? And there's a danger sometimes of being too close to your team, because sometimes you have to be the boss, don't you? You might have to deliver bad news. You might have to deal with performance issues. So some really good points there. I liked somebody had listen. That's a key leadership skill, really, really important. I've just been today writing a program that I'm running around communications, and so much of that people think it's about speaking, but actually a lot is about listening and taking on board ideas and thoughts and hearing from your team. So I'm just going to move on and let you get back into your seats in a moment and share a clip from YouTube. It's also about some kind of lessons of leadership and how do you find the leadership X factor. Well, it sounds like you've already got a lot of it. So if you want to move back in your seats, please do. I, many years ago, was taught a technique called flip back and flick up. And it's exactly the same thing where you mentally, particularly do with presentation skills, but it's the same in a leadership management sort of situation as well. You think back to a time where something went really, really well, where maybe you did a performance appraisal that was amazing, or you ran the best team meeting that you could ever think of, or you influenced somebody to not spend a load of money that you didn't think was right, or whatever it was. And you think about the emotions you felt when that thing went really well. Oh, great, I felt positive, I felt confident, I felt I, you know, could influence people, whatever it might be. And then just before you go to do your next intervention, whatever it might be, your next presentation, your next management meeting, your next time you want to try and influence your boss or your customers, you kind of imagine it on the little auto cue in front of you. How was that? And that was me being awesome. And that's it's a great confidence builder, and that's partly why I quite like that video as well, because it's a lot of these techniques, they're not new, they're tried and tested, but actually really, really useful things to do. The other thing that Matt mentioned in that clip was something else we talked about last week, was that bit about self-reflection. So do you remember we were talking about maybe at the end of each day, just spending 5 minutes thinking about maybe what went well, what you've learnt, what you might do differently. But actually, things going wrong, fantastic learning points. Yeah. So, and things going wrong as leaders, remember the model of development I showed you, and I've got the slide on it again later on, is about learning through hardship. And actually they're invaluable learning lessons is when stuff goes wrong. It's like, so what can I learn from that? What could I do differently next time? So, so that self-reflection, self-awareness it's again, a very useful tool. You know, leadership has changed enormously through the years and through the ages, from, you know, dictatorial, great man leadership of kings and czars, and you know, one leader who's ultimately powerful over everybody, right through more transformational, transactional leadership, where, you know, I need you to do something, So go away and produce me 100 bales of cotton, but in return I will pay you this much. You will have, whatever terms and conditions. So we're in it together kind of thing. Right through to modern day leadership, which is all around this kind of authentic leadership, emotional intelligence, as we were just talking about, and really leading from within, me as a leader. So I lead you because you respect me, you understand my authority, and we work together. So leadership's really, really moved on, and now what people are looking for is that emotional intelligence is in leaders. They want their leaders to understand them and what makes them tick, and listen to them. One style of leadership does not fit all, and in any given day, different things happen, and different team members have different needs at different times. So if we just have one style of leadership, we might find we come unstuck at certain times. You'll know, any sports fans will know, there isn't one golf club for every shot that you might play, because it just wouldn't work, would it? If you've got a tee shot to do and you get a massive driver, it's not going to work. Similarly, if you're playing something like tennis and you go for a massive forehand right down the end of the court, when actually what you need is a nice little drop shot, a bit of subtlety, you need to choose a different style to get a different result. And leadership's exactly the same. You might need to empower. I think I heard you talk about empowering earlier on. You might need to delegate something. You might need to coach a team member. And really thinking about when those different styles might work is a key skill. It's all about adjusting your style to the situation that you find yourself in as a leader or as an influencer. So you can't just take what works in one place and with one person, put it into another one and expect that you'll get the same results. It just doesn't work like that. Has anyone read the book called The 1 Minute Manager? Fantastic little book. So he's written a whole series of them now. Really short, very snappy, very useful management books. So his first one was called The 1 Minute Manager, and it's exactly that, thinking I don't have time to read a great big textbook. And they identified kind of 4 key leadership styles that we tend to use. And they are directing, selling, they talked about, but it's moved on a little bit now. We tend to use the word coaching a bit more, so I'll explain what all these are in a second. Participating or supporting, and delegating. So in almost anything that we're doing in terms of leadership, we sort of fall into one of these 4 key styles. One of the premises of situational leadership is to do with what they call the maturity of followers. And it's not about their age, it's about how established and how experienced your team members are. So he called them followers, sounds like a cult, but it actually means your team members, or the people that you're leading. And if I just work round the 4 boxes, we've got the first one here that they looked at was called the telling style. And in a telling situation, the behaviour leadership style tends to be very focused on the task. So something you just need to get done. So exactly your point, Adam, that you just made, some days are just like that. I just need to tell you some stuff and you just go and do it. So it's all around getting the task done. It's not really at that moment in time about developing your relationship with the team member, getting to know them better, listening, coaching, whatever it might be. So we'll think in a second about what situations you might need to use this on. So in terms of your behaviours, it's not so much about the supportive and growing the relationship, it's much more about the task, getting the task done. We then move up around this side to a selling or a coaching style. And this is about both the task and the relationship. So this is where your team members are still relatively inexperienced in this particular task or what it is you're trying to do. So they might need a fair amount of support. And you're also trying to help them to grow their expertise to do whatever it might be. We move on to here, the participating style. And here we expect that our team members have more knowledge and experience. They're far more capable because they've been trained, they've learned, whatever it might be. So actually you can rely on them to get the task done. So for you as a leader, it's not so much about this particular task, but it's more about growing their skills, expertise, your relationship, your coaching with that particular person. So you're still getting involved, but not as heavily as you would if you were somewhere here, say. And then the last one here is called a delegating style. And this is where your team members, your followers, would be experienced, knowledgeable, capable, reasonably confident that you can just delegate a task and off they go and do it. You don't need to worry about, you know, do I have to check in every half an hour or make sure that they really understand what they're doing or whatever. They can go and if necessarily make their own mistakes. So they're all times when you know, you might use a telling or a directive style. So new members of staff, inexperienced members of staff, or new to this task. So they might be experienced team, but you might be doing something completely new and they really don't know how to do it. Somebody who's insecure or unconfident or just likes to be told, someone lacking motivation, or if somebody's performing below standard and they might just need a good strong nudge in the right direction. And usually in this situation is where there is a time pressure. You know, there's a deadline, something needs to happen by a certain time and, you know, let's just get on and go and do it. Selling or coaching, since the slides come up as well. So here we moved up around the little box, is more appropriate when perhaps somebody's got some confidence, skills, some experience in what you're trying to do, but they're still learning. You know, they're still not quite at the stage where you can just leave them to do it. They might need their hands holding a little bit. Usually in this situation, the person is looking to you to help them. They respect you and your position, and they really want to learn from your knowledge, your experience. Usually the person wants to share responsibility and is willing to carry out the task and wants to develop their skills. So you're just coaching them, you're helping them through it, you're helping them to learn. And in this situation, time is not usually a critical factor because coaching takes time. So it may be a new task, something different, something creative, whatever it might be, where you've got the time to help the person through it. So that's kind of just taking you back to the model there and going from kind of telling in the early stages of a task or a relationship, sort of around the model to that delegating, and just remembering that you could have the same team member who in certain tasks you can be in a delegating situation, but in a brand new task or a brand new situation, you might need to use a telling style. So you can use all 4 styles with all of your team members, but just at different times. But it can be useful just to pause and reflect sometimes and think, right, what is going to suit me best here? How am I best going to get this job done in this situation? So when you're influencing, or if you're doing something new, or you know, you're thinking about your diary for the week, it might be just worth thinking about that and thinking, okay, as a manager, where do I need to be right now with this particular person? I just wanted to focus in this second part on influencing skills, and really because influencing is a key leadership skill, and you've already talked about some situations and things that you've experienced today where you've had to influence people as a leader. And influencing is a skill not just for managers and leaders, but for everybody. You know, we all have to influence people in our daily lives, whether it's to get our kids to get their shoes on in the morning, in my case, to, you know, your wife needing a cup of tea or whatever it might be. But at work, we're often influencing people every day and sometimes all day long without necessarily stopping and thinking about it. But to make stuff happen, we have to influence people. So it might be where you don't have direct authority, you can't just tell them. It might be where you need to persuade somebody of your point of view. So you had some examples earlier on of getting people not to do things. Can be equally important in terms of influencing. You know, all the decisions that are made in your business, in your organisations, are made by people who have the power, but not necessarily the right people. So you may need to influence the people who have the power to make what you believe is the right decision. And I can get what I think is right for me or for my business, for my team, whatever it might be. So and that's why I was interested in the ones who said, I persuaded someone not to do something because you felt it was absolutely the right thing to do. You could have just let them go off and spend a load of money and then go, well, I told you. I didn't agree. There's some capability there, so it takes a bit of skill sometimes. It takes, the right communications. It maybe takes you getting the right data and the right information for people and getting it across in the right way. And then, to Kayleigh's point, it's about behaviours. So, and also for you, Lizzie, if I behave in the right way, if I'm role modelling the right things, if they see me doing this, I am likely to influence people to do the same. So if I'm asking people to go and get their work done, I need to be seen to do the same thing. So, or if I'm prepared to give a little bit, to negotiate on something, then people will see me also doing the same thing. So what I'd like to do now is we're going to do an exercise which looks for a blend of leadership and maybe some influencing in order to complete the task. Okay, definitely some team working. You have to work together to do this. You can't do this in isolation. So I'm going to split you into 2 teams and I'm going to give you a task to complete. Okay, we might make it a little bit of a competition. See who can complete the task to the right criteria first. Everybody's fingers are in contact at all times. The second rule is you may only balance on your fingertips. Oh, there's a bit of non-compliance here. So funny. Have the solution, please. Okay, so just a couple of other points on influencing for you to think about. There's kind of two models or 2 methods of influencing which you can quite easily identify, and that is pull influencing and push influencing. So with push, this tends to be linking back to situational leadership when you're in a bit of a tell style. Just do it because I tell you kind of style of influencing. So it's where you are pushing to get your point of view. It's where you are going for your agenda. And so it's more talking than listening. The emphasis is on the facts and not people's feelings, or maybe listening to other people's agendas. The influencer maybe works alone. So if you think about a sales situation or some of your examples that you had today about, trying to persuade your management to do something or not do something. It's just you, and the focus is on quick results. So you can push to make something happen. So you kind of old-fashioned model maybe of a car salesman, or the people ringing you up trying to sell you stuff over the phone. It's a push. Do this because, do this because, do this because, and it's all about your agenda. The pull style of influencing is much more participative. It's much more about both parties being part of the influencing. So it's a lot more about listening and understanding the other person's agenda and where they're coming from and maybe what I can do to help them. Getting to know the other person, the influencer maybe working with others. So in a team situation, just as you were doing, we started to work together a little bit to say, okay, I think I know the answer to this. And, I did hear a couple of people saying, oh yeah, so-and-so, listen to so-and-so's point, or so let's try your method. That was pull influencing at play. And the focus is much more on long-term cooperation. So in a real-world situation, it's not about just getting this exact task done. It's about, where are we looking at in the future. And there are times when you might need to use push. So somebody said today, I've used a bit of influence to tell people to get on with their work. That's a push style. I've used my influence to persuade someone not to spend this money because I really didn't think it was right for the business. is probably more of a pull style, because it's about me understanding what's really going on. So again, when you're influencing, it's worth thinking about, what do I do? Or in this different situation, do I need to push or do I need to use a bit more of a pull?